There's a lot of things going on in America right now. It's looking crazy over there. So, well, I'm from England, and it's crazy here. The Western world at the moment feels like it's burning. But let's have a look at what's going on in the US.
You're looking at live pictures out of Paramount, California, where protesters have been clashing with police all day outside a Home Depot. It is still unconfirmed whether immigration officials were conducting an ICE raid, but several ICE vehicles have sustained damages, and multiple protesters have now been arrested for an assault on a federal agent. This incident follows a night of riots in Los Angeles following multiple ICE raids in the city. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Concha, along with Lydia Hu, Alicia Acuna, and Guy Benson. The big story tonight. Tear gas has filled the air as...
Feels like there was a mistake there. Big story tonight, and then started speaking before he transitioned to the other camera.
Protesters clashed with police last night in Los Angeles. At least 45 people were arrested last night, while DHS says that more than 118 illegals were apprehended this week. The protester tried to storm into an ICE facility last night after being fired upon by radical speakers at a rally. Listen.
I'm not close enough to this, obviously being on the other side of the pond, but surely it's not a bad thing for illegal immigrants to be processed in the correct way. And I'm saying processed. Obviously, there's a lot of people feeling very strongly about it because you won't protest for the sake of protesting. But if they were illegal immigrants, then basically breaking the law, not there lawfully. So just let me know. I'm here to be educated. We've got our own problems with illegal immigration in this country. Most of Europe has. It gets worse every day. Governments don't seem to be tackling or doing anything about it in Europe at the moment, or at least they're starting to. Some European countries are ahead of it, like Poland. But yeah, certainly in the UK, it's basically an all-you-can-eat buffet, our benefit system. But in the US, it seems like Trump's got in there with a grenade and just said every illegal is going to get deported, regardless of whether you've been in the country for years or not. And I can imagine that's tearing families apart at the minute, and it's not a real good situation.
Free them all! Free them all! Free them all! Because an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us! And Los Angeles does not back down for that kind of fight!
Continue fighting until we reconstruct every single institution from the ground up so that we can grant full amnesty for all immigrants. Demand full compensation for all of the victims of this criminal injustice system.
What's going to change this is organizing, and not just any type of organizing, militant organizing.
Incredibly, Mayor Karen Bass.
It says, stop deportation. Is it legal? One of the signs said legal rights for immigrants. I think if you're there and you apply for immigration into a country and you get granted that immigration, then you're there rightfully and you won't get deported. I think the whole point of this is that you've broken the law by entering the country illegally and staying in the country illegally. Yeah, like I said, I'm here to be educated.
Still standing with the protesters, saying she's fighting for all Angelinos regardless of immigration status, and doubling down that LA is a city of migrants, leaving out the illegal part. But the people on the side, as Karen Bass, are threatening ICE agents, spray painting death to ICE on dumpsters. Gavin Newsom.
Well, that's not going to help the cause, is it? So, yeah, families get torn apart, people who've been there for years working, maybe illegally, but, good people who just want to provide for families. But then you've got the weaponization and militarization of a movement, basically saying death to ICE agents, who are employees and people who are there doing a job. Now, there might be some concern around the fact that they're not fronting up by showing the face. They're all wearing balaclavas, but I think I saw something about the guy who runs all the ICE department. Christ, I'm doing a bad job of explaining what I mean. But he was basically saying that families were getting threatened and children was getting threatened, their children, basically the details of where they live were being leaked online. So especially, I mean, if it was me, I'd be wearing a balaclava in this position. I mean, you can see where they're getting death threats, they're getting stones thrown at the vehicles. God, it's just not a good time to be anywhere near there at the minute.
Also weighing in on the riots and blamed them on, get this, President Trump, accusing him of tearing families apart. And this chaos has now spread to New York City today alone as protesters organized in Lower Manhattan. Joining us to break down everything in terms of these protests is Border Czar Tom Homan. Tom, how is ICE responding to these protests? And thanks for joining us tonight.
Look, we're going to continue doing our job. And yesterday, we got 118 arrests. I was out here yesterday to kick off this operation. And what people aren't talking about is ICE served, several warrants yesterday. These were criminal warrants. This is a criminal investigation. And today, we're continuing operations. They're not going to shut us down. We're out there right now doing operations. We're going to keep doing operations. We brought in more resources to push back the protesters, but I'll say it again, a serious warning. You can protest all you want. You got your First Amendment rights. But if you cross that line of impediment, or you're putting hands on officers, or destroy property, you will be prosecuted. There's zero tolerance on
Yeah, I think there's protests, peaceful protests, and there's actually getting in the way of them serving the duty and issuing these warrants and serving out these warrants, especially violence as well. When it comes to violence, destroying property, there's always going to be that element that enjoys things like this, and every protest seems to have where you'll get a small minority of people in that protest that are there just to kick off, but I suppose one of the big talking points is the fact that I've done this big blanket approach of every illegal, we're going to round you up and we're going to deport you. Is it the right approach?
Crossing that lines, and that's what we're standing by. We're bringing more resources as we speak. We'll have more resources tonight. We're going to continue doing the job that American people voted Donald Trump in office to do, and we're not going to apologize for doing it.
Tom, it's Alicia Acuna. Again, thank you so much for being here. During the protest yesterday, a Los Angeles City Council member called for mobilization against ICE. Listen.
They know how quickly we mobilize. That's why they're changing tactics. Because community defense works and our resistance has slowed them down before. And if they're escalating their tactics, then so are we. When they show up, we gotta show up even stronger.
So, Tom, will the Trump administration take action against these public officials who are threatening ICE agents with resistance?
Well, I suppose, end of the day, it's the intention. But wasn't Trump impeached for his part of instigating all the riots that happened in the Capitol? So if you've got officials saying we've got to escalate our tactics and they've already escalated to the point of violence, it's not good, is it?
Absolutely. And I think Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice is looking at that. And, like I said many times, these elected officials or these non-government organizations, they can't cross the line either. I mean, we got people like, Hakeem Jeffries saying he's going to dox ICE employees. ICE agents out there with masks on. They're wearing masks to protect themselves and their families because they've been doxxed, their families have been doxxed, their life's been threatened, their families have been threatened. I know myself, I had over 1,000 protesters in my house. I expect that as the Border Czar, but these men and women are putting their lives online every day. They arrested a lot of bad people yesterday and today. They arrested child sex offenders. They arrested people convicted of robbery. They arrested public safety, not only significant public safety threats, but national security threats. They arrested gang members. We're making Los Angeles safer. And Mayor Bass ought to be thanking us for making her city safer. And the term migrant, as Joe Concha rightfully said earlier, they're illegal aliens. There are illegal aliens in this country, and we welcome. We're the most giving country in the world. But these are illegal aliens who committed a crime by crossing this border illegally, then yet committed another crime. Again, yesterday's about a criminal investigation into murder.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a similar situation in the UK where we get, 1,000 people a day coming over on small boats from France. They then get put up in hotels for free. They get given driving lessons, access to national heritage sites. They get food. They get given money. All this on the taxpayer. They then go out, and most of these are all, you know, men in the 20s, 30s, and teenagers. No women, are very rarely women and children. And then they go out and then start committing crimes, you know, real bad crimes. So they're here illegally. We put them up, we'll house them in nice hotels, and then they'll go out and commit crimes. And it's like, if we had the similar situation where someone came in and said, we need to deport en masse, I think the general public would be behind it. Whether they integrate into the society, I mean, it's the big thing. If you've got illegals that have came over, they wanted a better life, they had to do it illegally because they had no other means, they've integrated into society over a number of years, would you look at each case on its own merit rather than doing this blanket approach? And I think it's the blanket approach that's probably causing a lot of this at the moment in America. But again, you guys are closer to it if you're in America watching this, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Laundering, tax evasion, and some of the funds going to cartels in Mexico and Colombia that fund their operations of sending narcotics to this country, killing American people. This is about enforcing the law, and again, we're not going to apologize for doing it. We're stepping up. She says they're going to mobilize. Well, guess what? We're already ahead of the game. We're already mobilizing. We're going to bring National Guard in tonight. We're going to continue doing our job. We're going to push back on these people, and we're going to force the law.
Yeah, it's funny because when he was mentioned about like funding drug cartels and things like that, we had a similar thing because I'm in Manchester in England in the northwest. And there was an area where basically they sold a lot of knockoff clothing, like shoes, trainers, t-shirts, everything you could think of in terms of clothing range. And it's all the really cheap knockoff stuff from Turkey that was basically fake brands. And a lot of people said, like the police came out, raided it all, shut it all down, had hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of merchandise confiscated. And people are going, the police have got nothing better to do than, you know, go and raiding clothing sales by, you know, people who are probably maybe in this country illegally in some cases. But it's not just that. It's about what they're using that money to fund. Would they use that money to fund further trafficking into the country? Would they use it to fund drugs, etc.? It's never just about, they're just selling clothing and knockoff clothing. It was, knocked off clothing. It's about what they're doing, the funds used doing these illegal things. So I understand that.
Tom, it's Lydia Hu, and I want to ask you a little bit more about these Democrat demands that ICE agents be unmasked. Some Democrats are saying that if they don't unmask, they're threatening to dox them. Listen to this.
Yeah, well, you go out there, do that job, and then get unmasked. Yeah.
I don't know of any police department that routinely wears masks. We know that there are other groups that routinely wear masks. NSC 131 routinely wears masks.
Sending masked men to snatch, kidnap, and disappear immigrants of all legal statuses across the country.
Every single one of them, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will of course be identified.
Tom,
there you go. Every single one of them will be identified. We'll put the details out there, and then the great public can do what the great public usually does, which is escalate, threaten, and harm.
I wonder if you can speak to that a little bit. Explain to us more, help everyone understand the threat that our ICE agents are facing by just doing their job, why they need to wear these masks, and also what actions need to be taken against Democrats who are demanding that they be unmasked, and what would happen if they do dox them and at least publish their identities.
Look, it's incredible. We're at a place where the guys, the men and women who enforce law, they're the bad guys, and the ones who break the law are the victims. You kidding me? How come they didn't say anything about BLM? They're out there. They were a mask. How about the protesters, all the college campuses? They were protesting against Israel and the Jewish students. They were wearing masks. I didn't hear a word about that for these protesters wearing masks. But ICE agents are wearing masks for one reason, because the assault on ICE officers is up over 400%. The assault on ICE officers. They're being doxxed across the country. And their families are being attacked. Their families are being doxxed. Their families are being threatened. And I certainly understand it. I have a lot of death threats. I've been doxxed. My family's been doxxed. I understand it. But they're wearing masks for one reason only: protect themselves and their families. They're doing a dangerous job. This is already a dangerous job. They got to wear a gun. They got to wear a Kevlar vest every day because they're doing a dangerous job every day. While the rest of these people, like Hakeem Jeffries, is sleeping in his bed at night at 3 a.m., nice and comfortably and safe, there's men and women of ICE on the street doing surveillance on significant public safety threats, really bad characters, and national security threats. They're taking it on every day. The men and women of Border Czar standing on a dirt trail every night at 3 a.m. taking on the bad guy. So this is another threat against ICE agents, and we're asking the Department of Justice to look at these statements and see if there's something we can do. When do you cross that line on threatening ICE officers? And here's the problem. You know, you got all these people now attacking ICE. You saw they're writing death to ICE agents. ICE agents been threatened. Their families been threatened. And you got members of Congress. You got some judges out there that compare ICE to the KKK, ICE to the Nazis.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, why don't you put on the Kevlar, strap on the gun? Maybe don't even strap on the gun. Put your balaclava on, and then go out there doing a ride along with these people. Get down on the ground, and then decide after that. After you've seen people coming at you, throwing things at you, threatening your families, and see whether you then would say, yeah, I think you should take your mask off and just show everyone who you are. Or why don't you actually go for a ride along and then just don't wear a mask? And I bet your opinion will change pretty damn quick.
You got city council people saying ICE are terrorists. They're feeding the hatred. And here's my concern. I've been doing this for a long time. It's a matter of time before ICE takes a life or an ICE agent loses their life, because the rhetoric is at an all-time high and is being fed by people who should be more responsible. Elected officials especially, who keep firing up this rhetoric. I'm telling you, it's coming. There's going to be a tragedy because they keep throwing gas on this flame.
And what'll happen is exactly what happened on the back of the George Floyd killing, where there'll be another movement. And I watched that video and I was sickened, and I thought, why is nobody going over there tackling the police officers, saying, look, get off? And I know it's easier said than done when you're sitting on the other side of the Atlantic, and, you know, this was back in quite a while ago now, but we saw what came at the back of that with the Black Lives Movement matter. You know, in football, people still take the knee and everything, and it was a massive movement, and nobody should die in that way, with somebody kneeling on your neck until you die. But I can see what's going to happen. It will escalate to the point where he just said either that an ICE agent will get killed or they will kill somebody. And it might be someone who's protesting. It might be somebody they're going there to arrest. But it'll escalate. And then once it escalates to that point, it'll get even worse.
Tom, it's Guy Benson. Good of you to be with us this evening. The U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi just announced yesterday that Kilmar Abrego Garcia, another now familiar name in this whole wider drama, has actually been brought back to the United States after being deported to El Salvador. Here she is detailing his alleged crimes.
Garcia has played a significant role in an alien smuggling ring. They found this was his full-time job, not a contractor. Thousands of illegal aliens were smuggled. This defendant trafficked firearms and narcotics throughout our country.
And Tom.
But it doesn't fit in with the narrative on the other side. You know, these are just normal people. I mean, to be fair, there's using one extreme example of we got to get this guy back because he was a trafficker. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. That's what the judicial process is. Innocent till proven guilty. But then you've got to show the other side of that, where it might be a mother of 5 who's been in this country illegally but working 60, 70, 80 hours a week just to put food on the table. That might have been in this country for 7 years and just been thrown out and deported, or might have been in this country for 20 years. You know what I mean? So you've just got to show the faces of all sides of this argument.
In spite of these details, some Democrats are still on the bandwagon here, it seems. Watch this.
The Trump administration and all his cronies who should apologize to the country for putting us through this unnecessary situation, and to Abrego Garcia for putting him through this situation.
Otherwise, he has a status which is withhold deportation.
Now they're trying to act like he's some kind of drug lord or, human trafficker.
So, Tom, I posted this image on X yesterday showing how some in the liberal media just insist on calling him the Maryland man or the Maryland father. There's a big exception there on your screen, which is Fox News. And as you just heard in that montage, Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, the biggest cheerleader for this man in Congress, went on national television, if CNN qualifies, and said that the president of the United States should apologize to Kilmar Abrego Garcia. What's your reaction to that?
Van Hollen's an embarrassment to the halls of Congress. He went over and coddled an MS-13 gang member, a designated terrorist, a wife beater, and a public safety threat. And as we continue to do the investigation, now he's a human trafficker who trafficked not just guns and weapons, but people, trafficking of women and children. So he's going to pay. We're going to prosecute him. So we're bringing him back here to prosecute him. We're bringing him back here to put him in prison. Then when he's done in prison, guess what? He'll be deported immediately again. Did any of these people ever meet with Angel, mom and dad? Van Hollen had a young mother with 5 children murdered by an illegal alien. Did he ever meet with them?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the US is just imploding with this, and it'll get worse and worse. But in some respects, is it the right approach? And I think that's the thing. Deporting illegal immigrants after processing them to say, well, technically everyone is illegal, right? So if you've come into the country and you don't have the right papers and you didn't apply for legal immigration, then you're a criminal in the eyes of the law. I know it's probably not palatable to say that, but you are a criminal in the eyes of the law. And if you're a criminal, you should get deported. I just think the Big Bang approach is the thing that's causing most of this frustration here. And yeah, would I want the Big Bang approach in the UK? Yes.
Ever meet with the victims, the hundreds of victims of illegal alien crime? No. He's an embarrassment to halls of Congress. He's an embarrassment to the position he holds. President Trump don't owe anybody an apology. President Trump in 7 weeks gave us the most secure border in the history of this nation. President Trump is arresting thousands of public safety threats in this country every day. President Trump is making this country safe again, one illegal alien criminal at a time. And like I said, despite what's going on in LA, I'm here now. We're continuing operations today. We're going to do this job every single day. We won't be stopped. President Trump is a game changer. I worked for 6 presidents starting with Ronald Reagan. When it comes to national security, border security, immigration enforcement, public safety, no one has done better than President Trump. His success is unprecedented, not only on the border, but in taking national security threats and illegal alien public safety threats out of this nation. I wake up every day proud to work for President Trump, and we're going to keep doing the job that he promised the American people he would do, and the American people voted for him to do. We're going to keep his promise to American people, no apologies.
And the number.
Good point. He was elected to be president of the United States. I don't know how much of that was like the Latino vote, whether they knew that he was going to tackle immigration in this way, whether that was part of his campaign. When we're in the UK, we don't really take much notice of, campaigns. We sort of look at the cliff notes, and then obviously you get to know who's the president. And then since he's come in, it just seems like throwing grenades in there. But the Big Bang approach, is it making the community safer? Potentially, because you are deporting criminals. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about all the illegal immigrants. I know technically it's a crime, but I'm talking about the people that would have been there committing crimes and would have been doing nefarious things and using money illegally for drug operations, etc. So technically you are making the community safer, But is it the right approach? I just do not know. I think never black and white. And in this country where you've got, I think it's the integration. It seems to me, and I could be wrong, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that illegal immigrants have integrated into US culture better. And what I mean by that is, in most cases, you've got people who go over, they come across the border, they're illegal, but then they'll find work and they'll integrate in society, they'll keep their heads down because obviously they don't want to get noticed by immigration control. And they'll work, and for most part, they'll obey the rule of law, they'll have children, they'll raise them, they'll be raised in the American way. In this country, we'll get illegals coming over in boats every single day. They don't integrate. They just do not integrate into the culture. I'm not saying that in all cases, but in most cases, they do not integrate. And basically, we'll have this culture where you've got the British values, and then you've got values from other places in the world that just do not integrate. But yeah, I can imagine that it's with the Latino community and just basically people in general who've had families that are ripped apart by all this. It's just not really a nice situation to be in, and it seems to me like America is on the verge at the minute of either understanding that this is something that's sustainable and done in the right way, or I think it'll implode. And I think the Border Czar is right. At some point, someone's going to die in these protests and these arrests, and that's going to be a catalyst for just mass chaos.
Numbers prove that, Tom. We see that border crossings are down more than 95% without 1 inch of the wall being built as the big, beautiful bill goes through Congress. Rhetoric alone.
Does everyone remember when Trump said he's going to build a giant wall? Everyone thought it was completely hilarious the first time that he said that.
Is keeping people coming into this country, and obviously the job you're doing in terms of deportations. We thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Tom Homan.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
Not a great situation. I'll keep an eye on it. Let me know what you think, though. Is the Big Bang approach good, or is it just causing frustration, chaos? Is it done in an undemocratic way? Should it be done in a different way? How would you do it? It's not good. Anybody that's affected and families ripped apart, it's never good. But I also don't think threatening the men and women who are doing their duty is a right thing either. And for the politicians, the elected politicians, call for them to get doxxed and to show their identities. You go out there, strap on the Kevlar, take your mask off, and you go into those situations. And let's see how quickly you wish you hadn't. See you on the next one.